Buenos dias, mi amigos. ¿Cómo está? Me llamo Cro, and this is the Tactical Perspective. What the fuck is going on? Hey guys, yeah, no, it's welcome back. I'm doing the Tactical Perspective. That was the boundaries of my Spanish, and very fake. But just a big shout out to all you guys down south who've been watching the videos of late. Big hello to our friends in California, especially. I think of you on a cold day like this, in November 10th, up here in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, where the winter has come and it's gotten very, very cold. This is my third video of the day for the Tactical Perspective toy review, and only two of them were on videos about the figures. I did the earlier one about Helix. If you haven't seen that one yet, it should be, it's out there. It should be circulating now. And I did a review about Helix and the things I thought about that figure. And I did another video just prior to this one, just about Remembrance Day, guys. And I'm just going to quickly add why I did that is just because I am a veteran, and Remembrance Day is just one of those things that I feel I should have a voice. If I'm going to have a voice in this G.I. Joe stuff, then I should have a voice in at least giving my thoughts about the Remembrance Day thing. And like I said, guys, it's important for me to share my positivity sometimes, because we don't always feel capable of being positive, right? And I'm just like you, that happens. But there's nothing wrong with the full gamut of emotions, be them negative to positive, right? But I do this channel for one thing only, and that's for the positive. So who are we doing today? We're doing Shockwave. I am so happy, first off, that this showed up today, because this was not on my radar as far as my predictions as what was coming in my pre-orders first. And I think even on the Helix one, I said I was expecting, I think I said I was expecting Ripper, when it was actually Buzzer that the leak had been about an early release on the Dreadnought Buzzer showing up. So I was waiting for that sunglass and blonde hair with the ponytail figure, reviewing some Dreadnought kit, and being reminded about Max. So when I picked up my Helix, the guy said, come back. Later I got to unpack another box and think there's more. So yeah, Buzzer is there, and I left them sitting on my reserve shelf for Friday, for next week. I'll do that one next week, because I really was so happy to see Shockwave hit that shelf. And it's so nice to say I've got a Shockwave figure to do a video on, for so many different reasons, right? Like, first off, it's the name property Shockwave. They finally sorted out that whole detail between the Transformers merchandising and the G.I. Joe merchandising, and everybody realized, who gives a rat's ass? Just let them be. Everybody can be Shockwave. Who cares? Make a Ninja Turtle named Shockwave. G.I. Joe, Shockwave. Transformers, Shockwave. Dunder Mifflin, Shockwave. Yeah, I've been watching a lot of Office lately. Anyways, so they got it out, and again, with that naming convention on the box, we've got the Jason Shockwave Faria. If anyone watched my pre-orders and predictions and all that other stuff videos that I've been doing a little bit lately, I said how I felt like he was a very Brazilian SWAT team trooper, and I didn't know much about Shockwave. And I kind of feel a little foolish for pointing it out, because it's kind of the nail on the head, except I said Brazilian when I should have said Detroit. It is what it is, but that Latino last name kind of threw me in, like, what was the intent, right? The other thing is I didn't really remember Shockwave from when I was collecting back in the 80s. And I think there's a good reason for that. It's because I think that's probably when the Transformers debacle started. So I think they made one figure of them, and then they left it alone, renamed them, rebranded them, or did something. But I'm going to show you some stuff on the Google. I don't own any of my images that I show up on the tablet there, guys. I just do a Google search and share with you what I find to support my discussion about the character. But before I go into the file card and everything, we'll just have that look at the box. So you got that box art, and you got that digital rendering. And I'm going to keep Helix nearby, because there's going to be a comparative between these two, not just because they're 104 and 105 respectively in the series, not just because I got them both today and I was excited about them both, but because there's a comment I have that affects them both in two different ways. And the very first one is this box. On the digital render, you see that he's there with his riot shield, which is a newer addition to this character than what we've seen previous iterations to have, what few there are. As far as I know, on a Google search, right? Don't think I ever had him as a kid. But you can see he's standing on the shoreline in the backdrop, and up above there, you know, you've got those evergreen trees. So this is probably a local wilderness on our continent, I'm thinking, or a European continent. But this is nowhere tropical or desert or anything like that, I don't think. And you've got that train going through. So this could even be Japan. Who knows, right? That's not what I want to focus on. All right, I'm going to move around the box after. I'm going to quickly call up the Helix box and go, why isn't he on Helix's background? In Helix's background, there is a whole urban assault thing going on here with a SWAT team in the back, you know, cop cars there. They're in an urban neighborhood, and you've thrown Helix into that. Well, he's out there in the middle of nowhere wearing his urban cam with a riot shield, like part of a SWAT team. He's a SWAT team officer, and you put him on that backdrop when Felix could have been standing by a cliffside. It doesn't matter who stands by a cliffside, but you'd figure in front of a SWAT team, this would have made more sense. So I thought that was kind of humorous. I thought I'd point that out for anybody who may not have noticed or commented on it. I haven't seen if there has been, and if it's a repetitive discussion, I mean, and I'm pretending like I'm just pointing it out for everybody the first time, I doubt that, but that's what I noticed about it, and it gave me a chuckle about the box. Just gonna put on my old crow glasses, today's feature Costco glasses. As we go over the box, you see the side art there, and you've got that awesome veteran. You can tell he's an older guy, I bet, eh? He's got those crow's feet in there. He's focused. He's probably closer to my age than your kid's age. Veteran ex-cop, right? Ex-SWAT. And we'll go into the file card just after I capture the rest. There's that QR code that you can go on to Hasbro.com and find out all about Shockwave here. Jason Faria, as it were. And he's got his primary combat functions or PCFs all listed in the just below the QR code and again on the back. And he doesn't have the skull one that I showed on Helix, right? But you got that digital render of the kit. And here's what I was getting at with the file card. That's all we need to see on the box. You guys don't care about legally gobbledygook, do you? No, you want to get to the figure. We'll get there. Okay. You know me. I take my sweet ass time. So Jason Faria, as per the old G.I. Joe file card from back in the 80s, which I have now just made my thing to do in the show until a lawyer comes and stomps me out like Disney. We know that Jason Faria, his primary military specialty is special weapons and tactics, and his secondary is choir. This guy's got some pipes. He can sing a song. He knows a ditty, right? He is born in Dearborn, Michigan, okay? So the write-ups for Shockwave, and again, like I said, when I said he looks like a SWAT cop, but from Brazil, those were math pieces just at first glance. I've since been corrected. Here's his deal. Shockwave was the youngest member of the Detroit Police Department SWAT team and the holder of 2 citations for bravery when he signed up for and was accepted by the Joe team. When asked why he left a promising career to work longer hours and for less money, kicking down doors on better armed adversaries, Shockwave replied, "What do you think I do this for, the money?" That's interesting. I'm like, wait a minute, so Joes get paid less than cops do? It doesn't feel right. Does that feel right? Like, in Canada, in our military, if you have a very unique specialty, a certain degree of training that might be equivalent to a university degree if it were applied onto Civvy Street, you tend to fall into things like spec trades, okay? So certain trades, like my spouse who is a preventative medicine technician, which just is a fancy way of saying a health inspector and pest control and public safety and all that, that was considered a spec trade. So she made considerably more money than I did, but I mean, it was all on a pay scale. So I'm curious about what the Americans have going. I know their pay is very different, but I'm also curious if that is really the case, where the police tend to make more money than, special soldiers like G.I. Joe. Anyways, enough about that. They end this file card by saying everybody on a SWAT team has a specific job, like in a choir. Choirs have tenors and baritones, altos, etc. SWAT teams have their sharpshooters, climbers, and insidemen. Shockwave is the door kicker, and this is going to be important when I get into the figure review and why I'm a little iffy but happy. So he's the first inside and the first to find out how bad it really is. He's also a half decent tenor when his voice is in shape. Okay, so I think I understand Shockwave fairly well. I think anybody out there who maybe works law enforcement or had a career in law enforcement or military totally sees this guy. Anybody who watches any cop movies sees this guy, right? We see this guy. And then, of course, the guys who don't have memory issues like I do, and who had access to the cartoon and the comic more, clearly would remember this guy. To me, this guy was Beachhead 2. Right, or Firefly 2. When I saw him, and I don't recall. I don't think I ever ended up having him that I can think of. I don't think I ever even saw him on the shelves, but I think I saw him in catalogs, and I was like, "Is that a Firefly again? Did they make another Firefly or a Beachhead or no? It was Shockwave." Okay, and then I remember trying to figure out the confusion with the Transformer naming convention. Like, we all knew there was Soundwave and other issues like Soundwave, Shockwave. They were close, and I think there was other issues with another Transformer, Shockwave. I don't know. I don't follow it that closely, but I think when I heard Shockwave, I was expecting something different with the name than what I was seeing, and then yeah, totally thought it was Firefly. But if you look at the old action figure, and this is the one you got back in the 80s, we had a very different loadout for him, and this is where I was going. Yeah, you had the hat and you had the same like that version of their day of an advanced camouflage, a different camouflage, a different type of urban camouflage, and you could see it did incorporate the yellow that we do see incorporated on him here, right? You can see that the yellow was worked in, and not much different there with the look of the figure itself. But the loadouts were completely different. Back then, he had what was that? A Mac 10 with a silencer, very much like what I think Mutt had back then. Is it a Mac 10 or is it supposed to be an Uzi? It's hard to tell. I think it's supposed to be a Mac 10. And then he had that pistol sidearm and a combat knife, and he had a backpack, right? That the knife went into. And we see this kind of a backpack now when we look at Falcone. Falcone's radio pack incorporates that side sheath as well, right? But that was generally what Shockwave was he was the one with the silenced Uzi, right? And I found some comic images, and there wasn't much difference in what they were trying to portray him as in several different renditions. What I could not find was a picture of him outside of the classified series where he had a riot shield. So this is an example to me where Hasbro has put their cards on the table and shown exactly what they've been trying to tell everybody, which is, we're going to modernize Joe, and you're going to still like it because it's still going to be the Joe you remember. And Shockwave is a fine example of that. So let's zoom in on Shockwave. I'll talk more about the figure as we go. There, of course, is the display box that he comes in, and I do like this part of the packaging. I know they're going back to plastic coffin box packaging, at least for the deluxe sets that we see coming. I really hope they retain the rights and the licensing to do these beautiful little backdrops for these characters. I think it definitely works well when you see them all out there and they start to build up. But Shockwave himself with his riot shield, which is part of that new concept. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, and that's fine. But is this perhaps something that happened in the mid-2000s era with one of the more modernized 3¼ inch Shockwaves where this shield came into play? Or did Hasbro do this themselves recently, specifically for the classified line? I don't know. I honestly don't know where the question ever gets answered, or if it does, and I don't care, because I think it's a smart and really great idea. I'm all about symmetry and balance and redundancy, force on force, and all that other stuff, right? Between Cobra and Joe, you want things to be even. You want the threats to always be, could go either way, right? Especially when you're just collecting and you're remembering it all as a kid, playing against your buddy who was Cobra and you had Joe, and it was force on force. You pick and I pick, and you pick and I pick, and right? And with the Cobra Alley Viper and then the Crimson Alley Viper coming out, both those represented a control measure that we didn't have in Joe with the riot shield. This piece of defensive armor that could protect yourself and perhaps someone stacked under you, that was critical for riot control situations or breaching situations. And it's your Captain America factor almost for defense, right? Like, you can picture Shockwave doing something really heroic with that, maybe a blunt force slam against somebody and knock them over, or deflecting bullets, whatever the case. But it was a great add to the concept of this character with SWAT experience, because with it goes some riot control experience. All right, so I was really happy to see that accessory. Now, you guys know I'm going to give this guy a tactical grade and a playability grade. It's just going to be based on opinion. I am not a police officer. I am an ex-armored soldier. But I do have some opinions that might be different than you out there. And if you want to lend to the conversation about Shockwave and the kit that I'm going to talk about, then you do so in the comments. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit that like. And don't forget to, if you're not subscribing yet, why not? Hop on board. I'm going to be doing this for a long time, right? But I would love to hit that 100 subscriber mark, and then after that, we're doing, we're going till somebody tells me to really just stop and takes away the internet. Anyways, with the Shockwave figure, I'll do that head-to-toe inspection, give it the playability grade and the tactical grade, and then I'll move along on the way. But I'm not done with the Helix box or figure yet while we do this comparison. So I'm going to pull her down, and we'll just stand her next to him so that I'm ready, okay? So with Shockwave, the head, unlike when you were a kid, this time you can take Shockwave's hat off, and you can see that he's got the aggressive facial expression. One eye is almost squinting, while the other eye is more open. He's almost like the what the fuck? What's going on? Huh? Or daring somebody to do something, like giving them the stink eye. And you can see his brow is a little furrowed there. So yeah, that's more of a stink eye he's giving you. And then that great balaclava. And when I say great balaclava, I'm like, well, what's so great about balaclava? It covers the mouth, it covers the nose. There's no facial features other than the eyes. What is so likable about balaclava? Because when it's done right and it looks real like these ones do, they are so much easier to swallow than, say, a very sloppy one texture, no stitch work, no wrinkle kind of thing that some other figures have tried to pull in the past. The Joe Classified is really good with, if they're going to provide you a little facial detail, it's still usually going to be a great sculpt you like with that head, and it's going to remind you of the original. The ability to take the hat off, I think, was a great add. It gives a bit more range for what you can do with the figure, and conversion artists will like it if they want to make characters with balaclavas and buy multiple of these. Do whatever, you're gonna like this, right? So it's a good thing to take that and remove it. And we've seen these hats before with Gung Ho, both in the retro and in the classified line. I think it's almost the same mold. I haven't done a side-by-side, but there you go. You get another one of those. That's great. So the head sculpt itself, I've talked about that. The neck articulation, there is some limitation because of the collar of his vest, right? Second layer issues that I've talked about in the past. And I'm just going to pull that shield aside so you can get a good look at that Viper-like vest. And that you can see that big puffy collar across it there. Now, I say it's a Viper-like vest. It's not a Viper vest. It's a Viper-like vest. But you got that big puffy collar there. And that is limiting some of the articulation with him. Like, he can look up, but his neck can't tilt back, right? So that's fine. You picture him. Most he's going to be doing behind that shield, he's not going to be usually looking up. He's going to be pressing forward into things, right? So that's fine. I don't mind that sacrifice of articulation at all. Moving down that chest there, this is where the discussion starts happening. So I don't talk much about the Joe communicators. They're common to all the figures. Everybody's got one at some point somewhere. I never really identified where Helix's was, and that's interesting. Look at that. New discovery. You know what? You know what's different about a Helix, gentlemen? Helix does not have a Joe communicator. And that goes to speak to the character a little bit more about what I was saying about how she is an asset for Hawk offline. So interesting. But this isn't the Helix video. That was just an observation and a bad example of where I looked for a Joe communicator to support what I'm saying. Relevant. not relevant. You decide. Anyways, away from the Joe Communicator, I am a big fan of this vest, especially that padding and that soft padding that they're throwing into this. I think that is reminiscent of coming out of a police force kind of locker that he had. You know, some old kit that he had from his old job. And I am a big fan of the Digicam. You guys know why. I mean, that's more modern than anything. And the way they've worked that yellow in, they didn't overdo it and they didn't undersell it. I wasn't sure if I've ever been a fan of the yellow detail to it, but I think I am now. They've done well with this. But what I don't get, I'll talk about this after, but the shotgun shells, if you look at his torso, he has a set of shotgun shells sitting on his back pocket or whatever they want to say that is today. And the question is why? Because he isn't coming with a breaching shotgun. And this goes to another conversation I saw in another shop. I think it was Analog Toys had this conversation and with Tony there, the Australian, pardon me. And I remember I agreed with him wholeheartedly, but I was like, I don't know if I'm as upset about it as he was at the time, but now I'm starting to go, okay, hang on. What's being said here? You see that he comes loaded out with a big riot shield, which we love. That's the new ad, and that comes in lieu of a backpack. They drop the backpack, and I can't be happier about that because, you know, the last thing you want to have is balance issues when he's got a big piece of kit to have to compensate with the backpack and the vest and all that. It's just, it's a loadout issue on the weight of the characters and the general balance versus the plastic and the weight of the plastic, right? So, so I was happy to see the backpack go get the shield, but nowhere does he get a shotgun. He gets these two auto pistols that, oh, and you just see a good example of one of the other things I was going to talk about. Let's pull out the good one. He gets these two auto pistols that fit snugly into the side holsters, no problems there. But these are like updated versions of what he had before, right? Before he had like a Mac 10, now he's got these, right? Was it Mac 10, Mac 11, something like that, which are these little compressed zip gun versions of that, and I like it. They're little 9 mils, right? No problems. Now, here's the thing. This is why I pulled out the figure, guys. And I talked about it on the Helix video about the delicacy of the mag and the plastics they're using. That made that very difficult to put in her hand without seeing this mag bend unnecessarily. They approached this issue completely differently with Shockwave. And they made the mags detachable because they were so thin and fragile, right? But again, same issue. Very snug. And then this one took a little bit bend damage just trying to get it into the holster by accident because the holster was so very snug and my finger slipped. So just be aware of that when you're dealing with you're throwing it all together. Watch out for the mags. They fit snug, but they are very tender is I guess the word I'm going to use right now. That chest knife is another thing that we've seen recently with the steel core trooper, right? And I'm going to talk about that. I'll bring that down. You know what? He's a bad example to bring down. I'm choosing to bring down my Akiko, pardon me, steel core trooper, which is no longer Akiko. I'm just calling her Kim, which is funny enough. This is my tribute to my wife. Anyways, the point I was making is this chest rig. When you get the hilt down, when the handle's pointed downward on that particular angle in these particular sheaths that they are using for chest knife, be careful about the tightness because with hers was not tight at all. And when you go to move her, I went to go move her from one shelf to another, and I noticed the knife was so light. It never made a sound when it dropped. And I just happened to catch it in my peripheral vision going down and saw where it landed. But that, I think, is going to be a very easy thing to lose. With my variant, my purchased copy of Faria here, my knife is very snug, but make sure if yours isn't snug that maybe a bit of steam or hot water and just push down on the sheath a bit to tighten that up. Unlike with Helix, I didn't get any knee joint issues or any articulation issues at all with them.
He was almost a perfect figure for me. With that, the only flaws I saw were the weak ass mags. That Billy Club is just a fantastic ad for this, and it works with the idea of him doing a riot control, right? I'm just going to turn you around, give you one more look at the rear. You can see that padding is featured on the back. There is no backpack. That riot shield's got a set of lights on it and some Cobra kills. Like, he's knocked down a few, and you can see some bullet damage to that. Like, he's taken a few hard rounds off that, right? So on the inside, you can see he's got some a bit of wiring, I guess, probably to turn those lights on. And then it's a 2-point grip, one for the hand and one to bracket onto the wrist. And at first I was kind of like, well, I kind of wish they had maybe given it a pin so you could pin it to his back when he's not using it. But I'm kind of glad they didn't, because I think the pin would have complicated a very simple decision to just say, hell no. He does have these gauntlets, and I don't find the gauntlet really interfered with anything from articulation to the shield at all. So there was overall, I'm pretty solidly impressed with the figure himself. He's got the boot knife and the chest knife. So I talked about this in the predictions video. So the boot knife and the chest knife, if you see this notch on there and the way it is, this is to be used in conjunction for each other as a set of whatchamacallums, wire cutters and whatnot, right? So basically you can cut slip like that, or you can notch the blades together and cut. And it would have been too tricky to try and pull off as an actual functional feature. But I did like the fact that they incorporated the two of them. Going down the figure, the chest rig, the pouches are all very realistic for the character itself. He's got enough mag pouches for larger weapons that if you wanted to change his loadout, like, give him a damn shotgun for one, because that is the biggest complaint I'm having so far, is you gave shotguns to a myriad of people. You gave it to Covergirl, Falcon, Flint, Clutch is getting one. Like, everybody, Hawk is getting one. Everybody's getting a shotgun. And then the one guy where it actually makes sense, because he's doing breaching stuff, like breaching door handles, shooting off doorknobs and locks, kicking down the door, putting the shield down, blasting, like, it would have made sense for him to have the shotgun, especially when you incorporate those shells. The mag pouches, I get it. So maybe you want to give him a shotgun, maybe you want to give him an alternate weapon. They're willing to sign off on that. They can't sculpt everything you think needs to go with a figure like this, and I got that. But the shotgun logic is getting a little flawed sometimes, I think, because here's some questions I have. Well, I'm getting down the pant line here. I don't have a question about the Billy Club, but I have a question about this belt. How come, and let me make sure I'm not just seeing that wrong and I missed it with my old man eyes, but I didn't. So how come when you did the Kirkery there, the machete for our friend Helix, our new friend Helix, you gave that little loop for her to have her machete on. Yet, in the same wave, on a character that in real life exists, like a police with a Billy Club really exists, you've given him no placement of it here for his Billy Club to be slung when he's using one of the many other cool options you've provided. Hasbro, this is why I wanted you to call me. We could have avoided this together, Hasbro. We could have done this together, and now Faria suffers. So that was a real logic flaw and a ball drop, I thought, as far as where they were doing so excellent with the figure, and then it's like, well, what the hell? The other ball drop, I think, is overdoing the minigun. Yeah, when he was in his younger years, back in the 80s, when we first had a Shockwave, he had that submachine gun, and I guess everybody was a big fan, and maybe you so wanted to keep it with Mutt and Junkyard that you weren't willing to compromise any of its surprise and worth by throwing it in a figure early, and that maybe that's what drove you to change this gun. But then you doubled down and gave him twin guns. Okay, but the riot shield and the baton are two-handed. If he needs a gun, I could see him putting the baton away and pulling one pistol. But now he's going to throw that shield down and use twin pistols. And now I'm starting to question who this guy is. The other part that I kind of don't understand, and a piece of logic that, again, where I'm like, okay, but what is the design here, right? I get the total purpose behind the riot shield. I love the riot shield. This is an amazing feature to have on it. But you made it a commitment to the right arm, right? So a lot of shooters are right-handed, and the shield groove you put in is on that side. And I believe if you had put it on the other side, pardon me while I rip it out of his hand, and I'm not going to bother putting the pistol in his hand, but you see where I'm going with this. It was a firing slot or a viewing slot, right? Like, I think it made more sense on the left arm, but they've cast it to the right arm. And I am not going to go through a conversion nightmare to flip that. But I think maybe that was printed in upside down. So I'm curious what you guys think. I'm curious if this was brought up, if we were forewarned of that choice, or if this is new criticism. You guys can let me know in the comments. But that is really, I think, the only harsh criticism I have about Jason Faria Shockwave at all. I am really, really happy with this purchase. And head to toe, I think we are looking at, I think, the highest standard. This is what Firefly should have brought to the table. I don't see any real quality control issues on this one. No, they didn't hide the pin joints. But at the same time, there's no quality control issue that I can find on this one at all. And they made enough modernized changes, which is what the company's motto has been through this, and thrown in enough great new details and storytelling details. I mean, those lights, this goes well with the Transformers Dark Energon Night Force arc that they're going with as well, when you think this guy might work in tunnels against those mole troopers, right? There's just so much potential for photography dioramas, and just a pleasure in looking at this figure. So on a playability grade, despite his loadout, I mean, loadout goes under tactical, guys. You know me, you know the Crow. That's what it's going to be. But on the playability grade, it's going to be an A plus again. I'm as happy with this as I am with the Helix, the Helix purchase, as far as what they incorporate and what they allow you to do with an individual figure. And again, these are standard price point figures. These aren't deluxes. These are your standard $35.99 Canada, sitting at GameStop figures, and you're getting a lot with it. My only criticism, and the reason I give it an A minus on tactical, you know what, not even an A minus, just an A, is while this figure is a great modern representation and still a classic representation given new kit, the kit loadout, I think, should have been a little bit different. And I get you can't please us all, right? So I can let that go, but I'm going to take my A plus and change it to an A, and that's the sacrifice there. These, I don't think, are going to make their way to being peg warmers. I see Firefly right now here in Ottawa. He's a peg warmer. Guys, he's a peg warmer, I think, because they over anticipated the desire to have Firefly redone after it was marketed early, and then what ended up happening, I think, is they ordered a lot of numbers, and then the quality control issue probably got out amongst the demographic of the people that were buying it, that found out about it before buying it, right? So that might be affecting it a bit. These figures, if my first impressions are right, yeah, maybe we might have an issue of Helix if that need persists with other figures and that starts coming in as reports out here. But I didn't see anything in the States about it so far, and I haven't heard Viper Island, my favorite Canadian Hasbro Joe news channel. Liam and Dux haven't talked about it that I caught. And honestly, Shockwave was incredible as far as a figure goes. So that's probably, I did my 20, like my top Joe figures. If I had him when I did my top 10, he'd be fighting with CoverGirl for a place on that list. I think he's somewhere in there. He's definitely in the top 5 as far as what you get. I'm just not a big fan of the loadout they provide, but
They're smart. Hasbro gave you a loadout with all the other Joes they fished you in on, and you just have to switch kit. That's all you have to do. That's it for me, guys. If you like this video, you know what to do. Like it, you subscribe to it, share it with your friends. Forgive me for making a Remembrance Day video if it wasn't for you. And if it was for you, guys, it's out there for you. And remember, if tomorrow gets a little hard for you, you can hit me up in the comments of the other video. And, you know, we can switch up emails. Do whatever. Your viewership means a lot to me. That's all I'm going to say, guys. And I appreciate every single one of you. We'll see you next time on the Tactical Perspective. Thanks again.